Hi guys, welcome back to Elephants in the Room. It is me and Coco here. As you guys know, this little girl is a literal Velcro dog and I love her so much for it. So she goes where I go. If I'm recording, she's here. That's just how it goes. But I love her. So I'm not sad about it. So yeah, we're hanging out. This little girl got surgery this week. She got spayed and it's been a rough week. She took it really, really hard the first 2 days, but she's doing so much better, huh? See, I'm really doing better today. She's had so much energy today, but she's not really supposed to run that much because her stomach is still healing, her stitches. And we have her in this little onesie because she likes to tear at her stomach. And she was really sick of the cone. So I was like, let me order her some recovery onesies, which I didn't know were a thing, to cover her wound, obviously, so she can't pick at it. So she's in her little baby. Hi, her little baby onesie. I actually haven't done a solo episode in a while, so I'm excited to do this, but I always get a little nervous. But I do love solo episodes because this is just how I started. This is back to my roots of this podcast. When I started it literally in my bedroom when I was living in Arizona and super depressed. And I literally had the smallest one bedroom, and I literally put up the cheapest Amazon wallpaper and just put a podcast chair there, and I recorded it on my iPhone. Yeah, I used to have to turn my phone on do not disturb. I'd be like, David, if you call me in the next hour and I don't answer, it's not because I'm dead. It's because I'm recording a podcast episode. So beyond blessed to have cameras, multiple angles, and a nice studio setup. Praise Jesus for all he's given me. So yeah. And of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about all the technical things is the mic not working? Is the camera not working? Which it's all part of kind of what I'm going to talk about, which is great. So today I kind of wanted to talk about just getting older, growing up, being an adult. Adulthood is extremely unglamorous and extremely exhausting and extremely hard and extremely beautiful. It is everything, every emotion that you could possibly feel in life, you feel when you become an adult. Yeah, it's something that's hard to talk about because I think as we get older, we feel like we have to have our life together. There's this deeper pressure to have it all together. So talking about how we don't have it all together in the areas that we feel we are maybe failing, or areas that we maybe feel like we are not where we're supposed to be, or whatever it is, or areas we're struggling with, it's sometimes hard to talk about because we don't want to feel like we're not good enough, or that we're failures, or that there's something wrong with us. So oftentimes we don't talk about these things, and sometimes that makes it worse. So I'm just going to talk about my struggle and the struggle with becoming an adult and getting older and growing up, because it's a lot. So, if you're watching this and you're in your 20s or 30s or wherever you are, I'm 25, so I'm in my mid-20s, guys, which is scary to say. When I hit 24, actually, I was so scared. I was like, oh my gosh, because it felt like, oh, life is serious now. This is happening now. There's no excuse for me anymore. And that kind of takes me to my first point that I feel like is so important to talk about. I think as kids, we have this idea of what we think adulthood is supposed to be like, and what we're supposed to be like, what it's supposed to feel like, what it's supposed to look like, what we're supposed to accomplish. I remember when I was a kid, I always used to be like, okay, when I'm 21, I'm going to get married. And then when I'm 24, I'm going to start having babies. And then I'm going to have 3 kids by the time I'm 27 or whatever. I had this very set out plan in my mind of how I wanted things to go. And clearly, if you guys have ever seen one of these episodes, you know this about me, but I am a divorced ex-Mormon. I got married at 18, divorced at 20, 21. And now I'm 25 and I am living with my boyfriend, which is not something I'm necessarily proud of. We're not married. Obviously working towards that. And I love him. He's amazing. I never went to school, don't have a degree, and still really don't know what I'm doing. Like, still don't know. You know, it's like the older you get, you think, I'm going to just figure it out and life's going to just get easier and I'm going to have this flow. And I just think it doesn't really work out like that. And I think one of the craziest things about getting older is that as we start to get older, it feels like life becomes more serious. And you feel, you know, this pressure just start to push on you. Like, do you have your finances in order? Do you have your relationship in order? Do you have your friendships in order? Do you like who you are? Do you like your habits? Do you like your career? Are you doing what you love? Like, there's all this pressure to like be all the things you want to be. And I think dreams and goals and aspirations of career and what we want to do, and also just who we want to be as people, like as far as our character goes, it's good to want to be good, and it's good to want to be a more selfless person and a more disciplined person, and it's good to want to have a 401k and have money in your savings and have a financial plan for how you're going to retire at a certain age, and it's good to have an established career, and it's good to have a healthy relationship. But the problem is that if I've learned anything, it's that life does not go the way that we plan. And unfortunately, you can do everything right and things can still crumble before your eyes and not turn out the way that you planned, anticipated, or hoped for. And things are constantly changing all the time. And not only that, but like, you will never have it together. You know, I think when we were kids, we used to look at adults and feel like, oh, well, they just have to have it figured out. They're like adults. Like, they're my parents, they're my teachers, they're my advisors, whatever. And, you know, as you get older, you kind of start to see that your parents and the people that you've maybe judged and put really high expectations on, you realize that they're just people just trying to figure it out like you know? And so you can have more grace for them. It doesn't excuse maybe some of the things that have happened to you, but like, life isn't like, you don't get to this point when you become an adult and then you're just like, oh, I have it all figured out. And if you do, I haven't gotten there yet. And the people I've talked to and what I know is that you don't really ever get there. There's always more discovering. There's always more self-improvement. There's always mistakes that you're going to make and lessons that you're going to learn. And there's always going to be something going on in your life that is uncomfortable, or, you know, there's always going to be ways that you're failing. Like, you're just never going to be able to do it all and have it all right, you know? So yeah, it's weird. Adulthood is weird. It's like, you literally grow up, you have like parents that take care of you and that are responsible for you. And then, you know, you go to high school, you do all these things. And it's so funny. I remember in high school, like, everyone would always be like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's so funny because it's crazy that we felt like we had to know what we wanted to do for the rest of our lives at 18 years old, because your brain isn't even fully developed yet. So it's like, a lot of the times what will happen is people will go and they'll get a degree in something that they think they want to do, and then they end up hating it. And then they don't even use their degree. Or you're like me and you're like, oh, I don't want to go to college because I don't need school to do what I want to do. And luckily, that's still the case for me. But there is part of me that wishes I went just for the knowledge side of things. But the thing that I thought I wanted to do isn't actually what I ended up doing. And so it's like, even this, you know, I love this podcast and I hope that I do this forever. And in my heart, I think it's something that I will do for a long time. But truthfully, I don't know where I'm going to be in 10 years. I don't know what I'm going to be doing with my life and what my career is going to be. I have no idea. And I think I used to find that defeating because I am someone who loves control. I'm someone who loves to plan. I have severe childhood trauma, abandonment issues, and, have struggled with codependency and people pleasing, which is something that I feel like I've healed a lot from and that I'm recovering from. But a big part of that is literally obsessing over doing everything right so nothing goes wrong. That has never worked for me, ever, literally ever. Like, divorced, ex-Mormon, bam, 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 slaps in the face. I thought I knew everything. I thought I had it all figured out. I thought my life was set up, and then it wasn't. And even after that, I've continued to have that happen in my life. I've made plans. I've set my mind and my expectations to a certain standard for myself or for what I want. And then when I don't achieve it, whether it's because of my own lack of hard work, discipline, or it's because of someone else and their choices, or whatever it is, just if it's not in God's plan for me. And it's every time it's discouraging. Because I think we want to do the things that we set our minds to, right? We want to be where we want to. And adulthood is a lot of just being humbled all the time, like just humbled. Kind of like I said, I think when we're kids, we just think like, oh, like once I'm an adult, like I'm just going to know, I'm just going to have it figured out, and you just think I'm going to do my career, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have kids. And we don't necessarily think about the bad things that could happen, like getting a divorce or leaving the religion that you grew up in that you thought you'd always be a part of, or losing a spouse, or losing a job, or flunking out of school, or getting fired. Like, we don't plan for these things. Being in debt, having financial problems. Like, we just don't plan for these things. Being in an abusive relationship, being in an unhealthy relationship, getting pregnant, having a kid before you're ready. There's so many things that happen as adults that we don't plan for and that we didn't think about when we were kids. We were just thinking, oh, it's just going to be this. I think another really hard part of adulthood is starting to kind of deconstruct from not only the way that you were raised and maybe the belief system that you were raised in, but also just in the way that you learned to operate. And typically, we learn to operate off of what we know and what we see, which is, our family, where we come from, the culture we come from. And it's a really big slap in the face when you become an adult and you realize that the way that you think life is and the lens that you see life through is actually pretty limited. And not everyone sees life that way. Matter of fact, it's actually sometimes really ignorant to continue to see life in that way, and can honestly kind of just make you isolated from others. I think there just has to be a acceptance and eye-opening for other people and their ways of life and their perspectives and the way they were raised. And that's really humbling and also confusing. I think we grow up in kind of this bubble of what we know, and it's comfortable. And then when we're adults, that bubble gets broken and it's like really scary because like everything around you just feels really overwhelming, and you thought that you knew exactly how to handle things and what life was and what you believed in and what mattered. And then you start to question, and like I said, kind of deconstruct, not literally, but you kind of start to see the ways that maybe the things that you've learned aren't the only way to life. And then you start questioning, well, is this actually what I believe in and what I feel is right? Whether that's a belief system, a religion, or just the way that you were raised, the way that you were taught to treat people, the way that you were taught to look at certain political views, the way that you were taught to look at life. Like, you may come from a very traditional family that's like, go to college, get married, have kids. You may come from a family that is super non-traditional, and you're kind of starting to get exposed to all these other ways of life. And you're like, wait, this thing that I've decided that I am and that I want to be because we usually decide what we want to be, what we want to do when we're young, when we're kids, right before we're adults. So then you start to be like, oh my gosh, I've built this like idea of my life in my mind, and I don't even know if I want it anymore. And it's literally the most confusing thing. You feel like you're having a midlife crisis or a quarter life crisis. You feel like you're having a quarter life crisis all the time. Like literally all the time. It's so confusing. And it's funny because I wish I could be like, oh yeah, like I felt that way when I was 21, but like now I have it like figured out. No, like I continue to question so many things. It feels like so many layers just continually get ripped off. And so many things that I thought I knew and so many things that I've felt get questioned. Also we like to romanticize adulthood and also romanticize us and our character and the things we would do and the things we wouldn't do, right? Like I always said, I'll never get divorced, and then I got divorced. And I'll never leave the church, and then I left the church. And I'll never live with someone before marriage, and now I live with someone before marriage. And all these things, and yeah, it's so confusing and it's so exhausting. And it's honestly even hard to describe. But being an adult feels like you can just never catch up, I'm clearly in such a blessed situation now, like beyond. I'm so thankful that God has put me in the position that I'm in. I have obviously a very successful boyfriend who takes care of me and provides for my needs financially. I make money myself, obviously through social media and the podcast and stuff, but he does a lot to, take care of all the things that I need. And such a blessing from God, something I prayed for so long, to not have to worry about money. But when I tell you guys, I've never been financially set up ever. Like, again, up until now, I've had a blessing of security, thanks to the Lord. But literally, like growing up, my parents were dirt poor. We were on food stamps, Medicaid, the whole thing. I didn't have any money growing up, and I started working when I was 15. Literally started working when I was 15. And I just never put my money into 401k. I never really saved a lot of money. And it's really because I was never taught about it, and that's a whole nother thing. There's so many life skills that I feel like we don't learn in traditional school that we should learn. But yeah, that's always something that I have been embarrassed about, and something that I've struggled with is that I feel like I never could catch up with money. Like, I've always worked since I was 15. And then obviously when I was 18, I got a full-time job when I got out of high school. And it felt like no matter what, there was always something. So it's like, I would start making money, and then I would have enough and I would put some away, and then my car would break down and I would have to fix my car. And then same thing would happen with my phone or whatever it was. It just felt like it was always stacking up against me, and I was constantly trying to like back myself up and put money in savings and do this and put money in savings and be smart. But the amount of stress and anxiety I felt around money all the time was literally the most crippling thing. I hated it so much. I was always stressed, and I always took care of myself. I didn't have parents that paid for anything. And even if you do have parents that pay for anything, there's still this pressure that we feel as adults to like have it together and have our finances in order, and I honestly never have, and I'm 25. I'm literally 25, and I've worked so many hours in my life. I was a manager of a shoe store for 4 years, and then a regional for the last couple years of that. Full-time big girl job, worked 50 hours a week. And finances have always been something that's just been kind of a wreck for me. I've always had to take care of myself and pay my own rent and pay this and pay that. And And again, I'm coming from a very privileged place now, and I'm very blessed and I'm so thankful, but I haven't always been in this place. And man, struggling with money is a real thing, and it's stressful, always trying to feel like you're trying to catch up on bills and take care of yourself and pay for groceries and just all the crap that you have to do as an adult. And the worst part is that if anything goes wrong, you have to rely on yourself. It's like so much pressure and stress all the time, literally all the time. And kind of like I said, I'm kind of scatterbrained, but I have notes written down, but I'm kind of just speaking from my heart. I think something that is obviously really hard is identifying and recognizing the trauma that you have, and the unhealthy behavior and toxicity within your family, and the ways that that affects your life, and also the ways that you are toxic and the unhealthy habits or patterns that you've created, that you operate out of in your adult life from your childhood. Like that sucks. It sucks to realize that a lot of the things you do and a lot of the ways you operate actually stem from, a learned behavior as a kid from something that happened to you. As much as it sucks when you start to identify these things, when you're an adult, it's your responsibility. It's kind of like you have to clean up the mess that you didn't make. If you have childhood trauma or things have happened to you and you operate out of that and you have some unhealthy coping mechanisms or some unhealthy patterns or habits, it's your responsibility to fix them, even though you're not the one who necessarily made those things happen, who developed those things. And so it's like you have to be responsible for your own life and for breaking those generational traumas that bleed. It's like, it's crazy. Like, I know this sounds so dumb, but it's so true. We are such a byproduct of what we grew up in. We so often are really similar to what we experienced growing up. And a lot of the unhealthy behaviors that we all carry stem from our parents, whatever it may be. And trying to find a space where you can love your family and still have healthy relationships with your family while also knowing the damage that they did, while also having to deal with fixing yourself and becoming a healthier version of yourself and taking responsibility for the ways that you are unhealthy, while also giving grace to your parents because they're just humans like you. And just because they're adults doesn't mean they have it all figured out. And so you kind of have to let them go from that like pressure and responsibility you put on them, while also validating yourself and your own emotions and what you've experienced. It's like really a lot. It's a lot. It feels like adulthood is just this back and forth and back and forth and back and forth of like everything. It's so confusing. It's like, it's honestly like exhausting to even talk about. Like, it's exhausting, it's confusing, it's upsetting, but it's also beautiful. There's so many beautiful parts of adulthood, but it's just so much. Another hard thing about adulthood is that it's constant. You have responsibilities as an adult, and life just doesn't stop. There's no one there to clean up and pick up your mess for you. It's on you. So even if you're going through a terrible breakup, or you're sick, or you're depressed, or you're anxious, it's like you just have to keep operating. And it sucks because you just have to get up and keep going even when you don't feel like it. All the time. And I will say, I feel like that is one of the beautiful things about adulthood, is that as much as it sucks having to keep going even when you aren't okay, I've noticed through the many times I've had to do that, here's a great example. When I was going through my divorce, I was working a full-time job, and I would literally just cry on the way to work, on the way home from work, and usually in the back room for 15 minutes. And I didn't want to be here. I wasn't okay. It's all I could think about. I was not okay, but I had to pretend like I was okay. I had to go put on a face. I had to go do my job. I had to go be responsible. And it sucked. It sucked. It was the worst. But I've actually learned that pushing through and doing the things that we are responsible for and the things that we want to, even when we don't feel like it, the things that, like if you had no emotions and you weren't going through anything and you were to set out what it is that you want to do, what you want in life, what matters to you, your morals, your values, all these things, whatever that would be, when you're an adult, you have to do those things even if you don't want to. But there's beauty in that, because we shouldn't let our feelings run our lives. We can't let our feelings run our lives, because we're not always going to feel like we want to go to the gym. We're not always going to want to feel like we want to be nice. We're not always going to want to feel like we want to work hard. We're not always going to want to feel like we want to be honest and do the right thing. But because of who we are, because of what we believe in, because of our character, we do them anyways. And I think that's good. That's a good thing about adulthood, but it sucks at the same time because it's hard. Sometimes we just need a break, and there's just kind of no breaks when you're an adult. You know, it's like, even when things are going right, some things are going wrong. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's another thing that I've been struggling with. I feel like I've walked so many different types of life. Feel like I've lived and walked in so many different kinds of lives or life. And it feels like I can never get it quite right. I can never kind of figure it out. Yeah, I think I felt a lot like a failure the last little bit. Just in so many areas, you know, and I've come from so much struggle to now being in a place where I'm so blessed. Yet I've been reminded time and time again that our contentment and happiness does not come from our circumstances. It actually doesn't, because I've been more down, sad, anxious when I've had everything I thought that I wanted, or that I thought would just take away the stress and the anxiety and the depression. And it doesn't, because our contentment doesn't come from what we have or our circumstances. Truly at the core, because we're always going to be able to find something wrong. We're always going to be able to find something sad. And not only that, but even when everything feels like it's going right, there's always going to be something that's going wrong. Truly. And even if nothing's going wrong outside of you, there may be something wrong inside of you. And so it just feels like it's a constant fight. It's a constant battle, you know? And yeah, just to kind of give you guys an insight to kind of what I'm trying to say is that, you know, 4 years ago, I was working at a shoe store post-divorce, with not a lot of money in my bank account, not a solidified career, not a partner, not a healthy relationship really with myself. I was getting there. I guess like this about 5 years ago. And I used to pray all the time to God and be like, God, please just give me financial security, God. Just help me not be so stressed about my finances, God. Please, if you just do that, I'll be happy. I'll feel better. You know, and then it was, God, please, just, you know, I want my dreams to come true. I don't want to be working at the shoe store anymore. God, please, I want to be freed of this stressful job. God, please, if I can just do what I love, if I can just have my podcast be successful, God, I'll be happy. Or, God, I hate being long distance. I'm depressed. I'm isolated. I'm alone. I shouldn't have moved here. I'm by myself. If I could just live in the same place or state, if I could live in the same state as my partner, I'll be happy. I'll be good. And as I got each of those things, as I had my podcast have some success and I got my first sponsor and was able to quit my job and move to the same state as my boyfriend, not be so dang stressed about money, I realized that as fun as it was and as fulfilling and awesome as it was, and it was a blessing, a laundry list of a million other problems arise because we really have to be careful what we ask for. Because with a lot of good things, with a lot of the things that we pray for, with a lot of the things that we ask for, with a lot of the things that we think we want, we don't understand that there's always another side to that said thing that we don't see, that we don't understand. I don't want to speak too much for him, but David, my boyfriend, would get on here and tell you guys times a billion that money and fame and success does not make you happy. And that doesn't mean that he's not grateful for it and that he doesn't love it. But there is a lot of hard parts of all of it that no one understands and that no one sees. In the last year and a half that my boyfriend's career has taken off, I've never struggled with more insecurity, with more just hatred of myself and, hardness on myself. And so many other things. Like, there's been so much struggle that has happened. It's crazy because I just thought that when we got here, when I didn't have to stress about money, when I had, the loving boyfriend, which he is, he's amazing, and I have the perfect little angel dog, I'll be happy and it'll all be good. And it's not, because things are never, there's always something going wrong. Like life is just, it sucks. Life doesn't suck, but it's just hard. It's so hard. And there's beauty in it all, like I said. But I thought all those things would just make me happy and that I would be okay. But I feel like now I've been in such a fight with myself. And what I've been struggling with recently is, I think, having that realization of like having the things that you think you want and the things that you think are going to make you happy and the things that you think when you're there, you're just good. And then you get there and you're like, oh, actually, that's not the truth. It's confusing. Because I think we all are in this constant hustle culture of like, get this amount of money, you'll be happy. Do this, you'll be happy. Have this relationship, you'll be happy. Or do this, get this job, have this partner, and then you'll be valuable. You'll be responsible. You'll be successful. Like, we want to be all these things. You'll be this, And we live in such a world of just overconsumption and just we're always working to the next thing to get there, to be this. And all of it's such a lie, because the beauty is really in being content in the season you are in and embracing the hard things you're going through, because you know that they will provide valuable life lessons, and trusting God and being grateful for where He has put you and where you're at. And most importantly, being present, because we live in a world of constant stimulation and like social media, all these things. Like, we're all constantly thinking about where we're not, what we're not, right? All the time. You're scrolling, you're like, oh, I can't wait till I'm married. Oh, I'm so grateful for this, but this person has more than me. They're prettier than me. They're more successful than me. They have more followers than me. Oh, I want this. I want that. Like, we're constantly just looking at the highlights of everyone's life, and we're all the time just desiring more and desiring more and desiring more. And then the second that we feel good about ourselves, or we feel good about what we're doing, oh, I'm really proud of myself for this. We see someone else doing it better than us. And then we're like, oh, I actually suck, right? And so it's this constant comparison and this constant lack of being present in our lives. And being present is so important. I think even as an adult, being present and not thinking too far into the future. Like thinking about what you're doing each day, the choices you're making each day. And more importantly, I think we have this idea that to be successful or content in life, we have to hit all these milestones and we have to do all these things and have the career, have the marriage, have the kids, have the money, have the beauty, have all the standards that we put on ourselves. We think that, but we actually just need to be where we are, and be present in what we're currently living in. Because life passes you by if you're not present and you're not enjoying your current life. The things you can be grateful for, the people in your life, the place you're at in your life, like it all goes by so fast. It's like, why are we constantly thinking about the next thing, And obviously God doesn't want us to do that. He wants us to trust him and he wants us to honor him in the time that we have right now in our life right now. But really learning to do that is super hard. And I think the other thing I've really been struggling with as an adult is just that my circumstances may be a lot better right now, but I feel like a mess. Like, have you guys ever set your mind to something and been like, I'm going to work out and eat healthy or whatever it is. And then you lay on your couch for 4 days and scroll on your phone and watch Netflix and eat garbage. And then you feel like crap about yourself. Or have you ever said, okay, I'm going to write down my to-do list and I'm going to do all these things tomorrow. And then you complete one of them and you feel like shiz because you feel like you're a failure. Or you try to sit down and focus and read something or read the word and you can't read more than 2 words without getting distracted. And it's just weird because I feel like that's what's hard about getting older is that you feel like you need to know how to be an adult and how to operate. And you just don't. I still don't know how to like fully function as an adult. And I'm figuring it out. I'm trying. But I feel like I've constantly been letting myself down and struggling just with my health and my energy levels, feeling lethargic every day, feeling tired, feeling drained, feeling like I can't focus on anything, feeling like I can't read more than a page in a book, feeling like I just can't function. I can't go to a social event without getting burnt out and tired and then not wanting to talk to anyone for 10 days. And then I beat myself up because I don't respond to people. And then I beat myself up because I'm like, oh, I wish I was a better sister. I wish I was a better friend. And I think of all the ways that I could be better. And I think of all the ways that I could work harder and be better at this podcast and all the ways that I could be a better girlfriend and all the ways I could be a better dog mom. And it just feels like all the time I'm just like trying and wanting to be all these things, but I keep just letting myself down. And I don't know if it's because my standards are too high or what, but it feels like I should know how to do it by now because I'm an adult, but I don't. And it feels like I'm still a kid. And there's so much of my childhood that got robbed from me. And I have to let myself be a kid. Like, we have to let ourselves be kids. Like, just because we're getting older doesn't mean that, like, we have to stop being patient with ourselves, giving grace to ourselves, giving love to ourselves. We're so mean to ourselves. I'm so mean to myself. We set such high standards for ourselves. And then because we're older, we don't give ourselves the grace or the patience that we would if we were kids. And as much as you could say, well, that's being disciplined. Yeah, discipline is amazing and good, but perfect love does not operate out of fear. We have to do things that are good for us and be good, not because we're scared that we won't be enough if we don't do them. We have to understand that we are enough as we are and then operate out of a place of love for ourselves. Like, I'm going to do this hard thing, not because if I don't do it, I suck, but because I love myself. So I want to do this hard thing because I know it's good for me. And I love myself. It's like we need to operate out of that place. And when you get to adulthood and you realize that maybe you haven't been, trying to operate out of that place is hard because it feels like you're all the time failing, you know? Like ever since I got back from touring and traveling with my boyfriend, it feels like I just can never do the things that I set my mind to. I feel like I constantly fail myself and I let myself down. And it's so exhausting. The trauma that I feel like I've healed from and worked through creeps back up. And those old patterns and those old ways. And yeah, it's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's so much work to try to be a healthy, happy, functioning adult. And you're never going to have all the boxes checked off, you know? Like you're just not. That sucks, you know? And yeah, it's just hard. It's just hard, man. And I don't mean to sound so negative because there's so many beautiful parts of being an adult and growing up. And I'm so beyond blessed. And I think that that's the lesson that I'm continually learning is like the beauty and the joy is within it all, within the mess. It's not when you have all these things, when you are all these things. It's just life itself is beautiful, that we get to wake up every day and live life. And we're not always going to feel that way, but it is. It's beautiful and it's good. And there's so much joy in it, you know? So yeah, that felt like a lot, but I'm just kind of trusting my heart on this one and just speaking from my heart. I don't know if anyone related to that. I don't know if I just talked and none of that made sense and none of you guys understood. But I want to give you guys some words of encouragement and some tips that I feel like I'm learning and that I've learned for how to navigate just feeling like you're failing all the time and that adulthood is scary and confusing and weird. Like taxes. What the heck? I think something that I've been practicing and trying to do is seeing the little me inside of me. And when I start to operate out of self-hatred or disappointment or sadness or whatever, instead of beating myself up and feeling like I have to have it figured out, I try to look inward and be nice to that little Nicole inside of me that maybe didn't get what she needed. And I think that when we become adults, you know, and we don't technically have like our parents aren't responsible for us, I think there's a beauty in trying to parent yourself in the sense of like letting yourself be a kid still, because you truly are, and not beating yourself up and like honoring that little kid, you know, speaking to yourself with kindness, with love, with grace, not with hostility or judgment. Like think about your 8-year-old self in a room. If whatever it was that you felt like you were failing at, or whatever it is that you're going through that's really hard, if your 8-year-old self was going through that or doing that, what would you say to your 8-year-old self? And if it's something different than what you'd say to yourself now, I don't know. I just feel like we've just got to give ourselves that love and that grace, because when our younger selves feel safe, that's when they can actually operate out of a place of love. And that's when they can actually break through, you know. But when we're mean to ourselves, when we beat ourselves up, when we don't treat ourselves with that love, I feel like there's just walls that get put up, you know, even with ourselves. Structure and routine actually create freedom. I feel like as kids, we're like, oh, I just want to do whatever I want. I don't want any structure. I don't want routine. I can stay up all night and do whatever I want. I'm an adult. But as much as I hate to say it, structure and routine create freedom. Routine is one of the best things. It's such a security for us. It's something that's familiar for our bodies. It helps us feel achievement. It helps us feel safe. It helps us learn to trust ourselves. It helps us build a sense of self-worth because we follow through on the things we say to ourselves and the things we set our mind to. It's so good. But I think one thing about it is that I've fallen in and out of routine over and over and over again. And I get so mad at myself. So like, don't overdo it. Don't try to do it all. Like, be simple with your routine and with your structure. Don't write out 20 billion things that you have to do. Start small. Start with the bare necessity. Start with the basics. I'm going to wake up and spend 5 minutes praying. I'm going to wake up and spend 10 minutes in the sun. I'm going to move my body for 3 days a week. Whatever it is, be kind to yourself and set realistic standards, goals, routines, and structure. And the good thing about routine and structure is that when we do those things and when we have that routine, when we have that structure, it actually creates freedom with the remaining time, with the remaining things. But when we don't have any of that, it can feel just like a big mess in our heads and in our bodies all the time. And it's a lack of familiarity, which actually puts our body into like survival mode. Like it puts us under a lot of stress when we can't predict what's happening, if that makes sense. No one has it figured out. I know people who are 35, 40, 45, and they still are learning and they still are growing and they are still facing things that they didn't think they would at the age that they're at. We can't predict the future, which sucks. We can't control the future. We can't control who comes into our life, who goes out of our lives, what jobs we lose. That's okay. Like, there is freedom and peace in knowing that no one has it figured out. And even if you're looking at someone on social media and being like, oh, well, they have money and they have this relationship and they have success. Even, I know people have compared their lives to me because I'm dating this desirable man and he has money. Guess what, guys? My life is not figured out at all. And I struggle all the time, all the freaking time. And he does too. We have to stop idolizing everyone around us and thinking that they have it figured out, because they may be struggling with something that you're not struggling with, or they may be failing in an area that you're not failing in. But all of us are facing hardship, failure, confusion, family stuff, friend stuff, relationship stuff. Everyone's got something. And even if they're not admitting it, they do. So when you look at someone else and think they have it figured out and I don't, and I'm a failure, you're not. None of us know what we're doing. Literally none of us. This one sucks, but it's true. The hard times are teaching you extremely valuable lessons. Being an adult is brutal. And when I went through my divorce and when I left the church, I was like, this is literally the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I will never be glad that this happened. Take it away. Take me back to when I was married. Take me back to when I still believed in the church. I don't want this. I hated it. Now, it's the thing that I'm most grateful for. It literally made me who I am. It made me a way better person. It made me a way more empathetic person. It humbled the crap out of me. It taught me so many hard life lessons. But holy crap, I'm so thankful because it helped me connect with people more than I ever would be able to. I don't even know if I'd have this podcast if I didn't go through what I went through, because this is what inspired me to be vulnerable, because there is so much beauty when we can unite in the struggle, because we're all going through it. And going through trials and going through hard times in lives, actually going through trials and going through hard times in life actually produces so much joy. Like, it's actually crazy. There's so much joy that comes out of those things. There's so much even joy within it. I know that sounds crazy, but if you're starting to face something hard and things are starting to fall apart in your life and you think you're never going to be okay again, this is your sign. You will. Actually, life is going to be better for it. You're going to be better for it. This hard thing is actually something you're going to be thankful for. And I know you don't believe it, but I'm telling you, on the other end of this, I would never take back what happened to me because it was such a important thing for me to go through, to be who I am today, to love people the way that I love people, to understand struggle, to understand pain. Because when you truly understand struggle and pain and sadness and destruction and life and everything falls apart, you're so much more grateful. And you feel things more deeply. It's just so good. It's so good. So the hard times that you are going through right now, they're teaching you extremely valuable lessons that are worth the pain. I know it doesn't feel like it's worth the pain, but the things that you are going through that are hard, that you don't want to go through, that feel like you are just destructing because of it, it is teaching you something that is so much more valuable than you realize, and something that you will be grateful for. Not everything. I don't want to excuse bad things happening to people, but there is beauty on the other end. I'm not saying to be grateful for what you went through, but I'm just saying there can be beauty that comes out of those things. The more that you let go of what you can't control, and the more that you focus on what you can control, the more freedom that you're going to feel. Stop trying to control things that are out of your control. You can't make them love you. You can't fix people. You can't change people. You can't change the way that the world is. All you can do is choose who you want to be every day. Choose how you want to treat people, and choose to try to do good and to try to do what you love every day. That's all you can do. You literally can't control anything else. But when you accept that and you start leaning into that, you will feel so much freedom and peace. I promise. The weight and the pressure will come off of your shoulders. And I think a big part of that is giving it to God and trusting Him with it, and understanding that all you can do is focus on you and the little choices you can make, and the bigger things are for Him. And just to close out, like, life is one big messy, beautiful mess that's beautiful and messy and ugly and pretty and fun and joyful and sad and happy, and it's all one big emotion. But I think that's something so cool about life, is like each emotion, each season that you go through, each moment, they all work together for the ultimate good. And also, one without the other just doesn't work. Like, you can't have joy without sadness. If you don't know what sadness feels like, you don't know what joy feels like, you know? And so it's like, as we go through every single emotion, understanding that there's beauty in all of it, truly. And there's so much beauty in failure, because it teaches you to stop like trying to have it all figured out. Like, I feel like failure is humbling, but it's also just a control thing. It's understanding that like it's all bigger than us. We're not perfect. We can't hold ourselves to a standard of perfectionism, or of when we become an adult, we're just supposed to be this way. We are ever changing. We are ever learning. We are growing. We are failing. We are loving. Things are happening all the time around us, and we just have to let them. We have to let go. I love you. I just hope that you know, if you feel like you have nothing figured out and life is so confusing and stressful, you're not alone. You're not. And we're all in it together somehow, some way. So I'll close this out by saying, if you guys would like to support me, you guys know you can rate this podcast, review it. You can share it on your story, share it with a friend, leave a comment, send me a DM, all the things. If you guys want to see more of me, which sounds annoying to say, because yeah, see, and here I am being mean to myself again. If you guys would like to spend more time with me, you can watch my cooking show. I have a cooking show called Elephants in the Kitchen, and it's so fun and I love it. So I actually drop episodes bi-weekly with this episode. So every other week it's a podcast episode, and then it's a cooking episode. So you can go and watch that. I make yummy recipes, hang out. I love you guys so much. I will talk to you guys in 2 weeks, and I'll close this out by saying, what elephants are in your room? My name is Nicole. See, I just said that twice. That's okay. My name is Nicole, and I will talk to you guys in 2 weeks.